codependent. I'm Heidi. I'm codependent. Um, and this is part two. I don't know how many of you were here for the first part, but it was in I think July actually, and then we scheduled out the part two for the following week, and then I had an old injury flare up in my neck, and it was causing numbness down my arm and shooting pains, and so anyway, I've spent this whole summer like dealing with that, and it's finally, I don't know about resolved, but I'm in a much better place now. So anyway, I can function again. But this was the next available slot that they had was in October. So here we are doing part two of peeling the onion and focus specifically around the love addiction, love avoidance. And so the first half that we did, I shared my story and went into quite a bit of depth around that. And then we did the book study part where we read portions of Peeling the Onion. So since it's been so long, I feel like we need a refresher. So I'm going to go ahead and read sections of Peeling the Onion again, just so that we can get back in the right mindset. I appreciate the committee making the meeting longer. So today's meeting is going to be 3 hours instead of 2. So we're going to go until 3:30 Arizona time. Is that right? Yeah, 3:30 Arizona time. And right now Arizona's on Mountain Standard Time. So I think we'll have time for this, but I just wanted to get us right, get us back where we left off last time in talking about, intimacy wounds and abandonment wounds that contribute to our love addiction, love avoidance, and all of those pieces. So like I said, I'm going to do a little bit of review on peeling the onion, and then we're going to jump into step work, and we're going to get as far as we can through the 12 steps. It's not going to be a thorough set of steps in a couple of hours, but we're going to touch on all the steps hopefully in this time, and we'll have breakout rooms. You guys are going to go into small groups of 3 or 4 in order to process and share, what comes up for you in each step. And I've just designed, a short exercise for each step. So, hopefully this will inspire you to, if this work is something that you feel like your higher power is calling you to do, to dive in deeper with your sponsor or create your own step group or some way to get into these pieces of the CoDA work. So let me jump into the PowerPoint. All right. Is that not doing that? That's why. Okay. So here we go. CoDA Peeling the Onion, healing from love addiction, avoidance, abandonment, and enmeshment. So relationship addiction. Actually, first I'm going to read this little piece. This is also from Peeling the Onion, but it's in the beginning before it's on page 5 in my book. And I might have an older book because I don't know if the page numbers always match. Everybody's pamphlet might be different, a different version of the same pamphlet. But under Peeling the Onion on page 5 in mine, it says, at CoDA meetings, we often hear people talk about other addictions: alcohol, drugs, exercise, food, gambling, spending, work, etc. During the recovery process, as we examine our behaviors, many of us discover addictions to love, sex, and relationships. Common denominators include control, intensity, drama, distorted thinking, and emotional immaturity. Those, I qualify for all of those. These manifest as addictive and or avoidant behaviors. At the root of all of these behaviors is the absence of intimacy with ourselves, our higher power, and others. Through examining the patterns and characteristics of our codependence on a deeper level, we peel back more and more layers of the onion. As we explore, we gain insight. We may experience tears of pain relief, discovery, regret, and joy. So now I'm going to go ahead and read off the screen. So many people, relationship addiction, many people join the Fellowship of Codependents Anonymous after a relationship is ended painfully. That was my story. Some have a pattern of serial relationships while others stay in relationships even if physical or emotional abuse occurs. Some jump into a new relationship in an attempt to feel to avoid feeling pain. Rather than working on issues with a current partner, some people seek happiness outside of the relationship through emotional infidelity or by sexually acting out. I also did all that. Others avoid relationships by immersing themselves in activities or engage in different addictive behaviors out of fear of intimacy or failure. Some of us continue to look for the perfect soulmate, even if currently in a committed relationship. We may be romantically involved with more than one partner. Some of us may engage in several of these behaviors simultaneously. These patterns of living can be classified as addictions, all driven by our codependency. And so that, that helps me to reframe how I understand the difference between addiction and codependency. Like codependency is the underlying cause. All addictions, especially these kind of relational addictions, are the symptom of our deeper codependency. Fear of not being enough. In love addiction, we are hooked on being in love and stuck in the illusion of romance. We sometimes have several relationships at the same time and live in pseudo intimacy with our partners, preventing us from having a true intimate and committed relationship with one partner. We search for a soulmate to complete us. Lost in a romantic fantasy, we often ignore warning signs and choose partners who are emotionally unavailable. We take our identity from our relationship with Mr. or Mr. or Ms. Perfect and believe we look good to the world. We use sex to instantly fall in love. We deceive ourselves into believing we are in love with our sexual partner. And some of us may, be obsessed with a particular person, maybe that we know in our friendship circle or that we work with, and we may never take action on that, but we still may use the story of that person and some kind of future possibility to medicate, so we can be in love addiction with somebody that doesn't even have a clue that we like them. It can take on so many different forms. Fear of our feelings. We may engage in inappropriate behaviors to avoid painful and overwhelming feelings. Before I highlight the stuff that feels like it's familiar or like maybe needs a little more investigation, because that'll help us get there quicker. It's like that we're looking for the similarities in this, not the differences. It's easy for our defense mechanisms to go, oh, that's not me. Oh, I don't do that. But there's something in the back of our mind that might say, look at that deeper, look at that harder, because the sooner we get to the truth, the sooner we get relief. We want to stop defending our disease and start calling it out and trusting God with that. It's okay. And that's how we build, the ability to have healthy shame in this, is to recognize that, like, I do this and I do that and I do this and I make up this story and I have this motive, and and I still am lovable, and I'm still a whole person, and I still am worthy of love and healthy relationships. That's how we build that healthy shame that keeps us on track and keeps us in our integrity. So some feelings of shame as we read this are going to be natural and normal and healthy. The toxic shame is the part that says, I'm a piece of shit. This will never work for me. I don't deserve a healthy relationship. Oh, no wonder my life has been such a nightmare, and the judgment and the berating and the hopelessness, that's the toxic shame. But the healthy shame says, yeah, I've been lying to myself for a really long time, and it's time for me to get honest and surrender. That's healthy shame that tells us to do that. And we need that in our recovery. Shame is just a feeling. It's not good or bad. So it's part of our compass. Okay, get back to this. Where was I? Okay, in sex addiction, we may use sexual acts such as extramarital affairs, going to strip clubs, use of porn, or excessive masturbation, rather than experience our feelings. As shame-based adults, we fear true intimacy, afraid of being engulfed or controlled by our partner. Instead, through sexually acting out, we control and manipulate others. We may view others or our partners as sexual objects or conquests and use them to get a sexual fix. The concept of sexuality as a healthy God-given gift and method for expressing intimacy is heartbreakingly absent in our lives. Many of us as children or adults endured inappropriate boundary violations of a sexual nature, often by someone we loved and trusted. Out of fear We continue to accept and excuse these types of violations. We believe as long as we have a sexual relationship with a partner, we will not be abandoned. All this stuff applies to me. Being sexually addictive is a means to get attention, to gain a sense of worth, or to create an illusion of intimacy or power. Accepting or giving physical and emotional abuse provides excitement and feels better than not having a partner. Some of us argue and create drama as a precursor to getting a high from makeup sex. Let's keep going. Okay, fear of being alone. In relationship addiction, we stay in the relationship no matter how unsatisfying because we cannot tolerate being alone. We are afraid of change, do not know how to let go or how to move on with our lives unless we have another relationship lined up. If our partner ends the relationship, we are willing to do anything to get him or her back. We may threaten, beg, or use sex to manipulate. If we cannot change our partner's mind, we get into another relationship as soon as possible. We may, in desperation, even stay in dangerously abusive relationships to avoid being alone. And then relationship avoidance. Codependence is a disease that deteriorates our souls. As we continue peeling the layers, some of us discover that avoiding relationships is a survival tool we have used to avoid social, sexual, and emotional intimacy with ourselves and others. Avoidance or codependent anorexia is a way that we starve our natural desires for love, sex, and relationships. So love anorexia. Love anorexia is when we avoid experiencing self-love or receiving the love that God and others offer. As children, some of us were not nurtured or validated. We did not feel loved or cherished. We lacked healthy self-esteem. Some of us experienced enmeshment with caregivers and did not learn how to set boundaries. We did not learn that our wants, needs, and emotions were important. Whereas love addicts look for a soulmate to feel complete, love anorectics avoid love. There is a false belief that we are not enough. Love anorectics avoid feelings of shame by denying natural feelings and the desire for healthy, intimate, loving relationships. And another thing that I've learned that's important to project into here is that it's not really black and white. Like I can get into a relationship out of that desperate love addict need. And then once the relationship becomes intimate and threatening or, stagnant and unsatisfying, I may go more into the avoidant role and stay kind of stuck there cycling in avoidance and then may have busyness going on or flirting with a coworker and then start a love addiction relationship out there. That was in my story, and so, all these different methods of coping, these addictions can be overlapping in different layers of them. So again, just look at for how it applies to your situations. Sexual anorexia. Sexual anorexia exists when we avoid experiencing or expressing our God-given gift of natural human sexuality. Some of us were overtly or covertly sexually abused as children. Some of us were shamed about our natural sexual curiosity, our sexual identity, or our body image, whereas sex addicts use sex as a tool to avoid intimacy or to numb feelings. Sex anorectics avoid sexual relationships because we fear sexual intimacy, or we are attempting to stifle unresolved childhood shame regarding sexuality. Sexual anorectics deny natural feelings and desires for healthy, intimate sexual relationships. And then relationship anorexia. Relationship anorexia exists when we avoid engaging in intimate relationships with ourselves, others, or the God of our understanding. As children, we didn't experience limits or boundaries, nor did we learn how to have healthy relationships. As relationship addicts, we attach ourselves to others to avoid being alone or feeling inner pain. As relationship anorectics, we may isolate or conversely feel compelled to seek out groups to avoid being alone. We avoid the possibility of being shamed or hurt by denying natural feelings and desires for healthy, intimate, emotional relationships. And the last piece we're going to read is fear of intimacy. Intimate feelings are those that are most deeply personal. From infancy, these feelings guided us as we attempted to get our needs met. If our caregivers couldn't respond to our needs, we concluded that our needs and the feelings driving those needs were a mistake. Finally, we concluded that we must be a mistake. So there's the toxic shame, right? The development of the toxic shame. The resulting toxic shame is profound and painful. To avoid experiencing our deepest feelings, we develop dysfunctional patterns of behavior. We believe these feelings may actually cause us to die. This is the terror of intimacy. And, interestingly enough, as a love addict, I often thought, oh, I want intimacy so bad, like, oh, I'm not afraid of intimacy. I share everything with everybody, and I'm super emotionally available, right? But you don't know how emotionally available you are if you keep choosing partners who are not emotionally available. You don't know, you still don't have that healthy role modeling. You don't know how to be intimate. And something that I have discovered is that intimacy is not just the warm and fuzzy feelings of being high and safe and connected and romantic. That's not intimacy, nor is it sex. Intimacy is is seeing the truth about somebody, um, sharing and receiving, the truth about each other. And the truth can be scary. The truth can be painful. The truth can be can be triggering. It can be triggering for all my intimacy wounds. And so yeah, I say I want intimacy, but what I really want my partner to do is tiptoe around my triggers and say and do all the right things so that I don't feel threatened, so I don't feel fearful of him going away or getting too close or demanding that I be a certain way. And so then I start acting in those ways, and I'm demanding that he is a certain way in order for me to feel safe. And so, there's lots of different ways that this stuff shows up. But most of it involves a lot of self-abandonment, and a lot of abandoning the other partner when they're treading on your boundaries, not knowing how to uphold those boundaries, and it all comes back to the maturity that we didn't get because of this, what's on the screen here. If our caregivers couldn't respond to our needs, we just learned how to shut them off. We didn't have a mirror there to build, the skills of taking care of them, communicating about them. Sometimes the answer is no. I have to go in and take care of my feelings myself. Sometimes my partner can meet my needs. And but we didn't get the emotional maturity, and then instead of learning emotional regulation, and the self-care that goes with that, the self-awareness that goes with that, we build these other addictions and this fantasy-based world where we're always trying to keep people from going away but not get too close. And so that is the dilemma of the love addiction and the love avoidance. It's this dance that we do and our denial around it, and not knowing what real tools will intervene in these cycles. It's hard work. This is the hardest work I've done in recovery. So now we're ready to move on to the step piece of it. So I'm gonna refer back on each of the steps to our CoDA workbook, which is this book here. I can show you guys this book. And I just put a little blurb in here. So anybody that has the book at home, we're not doing the steps in this book, but I do like a lot of the way that they introduce the steps. So step 1, we admitted we were powerless over others, that our lives had become unmanageable. Step 1 begins our personal relationship with the steps of Codependence Anonymous. We admit we are powerless over our disease of codependency to ourselves and to others. As we do this, many of us begin to experience a sense of belonging, and we see that we are not alone. Even though new behavior may feel uncomfortable, we can address each situation in our lives one at a time with the steps, beginning with step 1. We can stop trying to control. We begin to establish a new relationship with ourselves. Saying we are powerless over our disease out loud to the group starts us on our road of truth. We begin to identify what we are powerless over and see the manifestations of our disease. We learn to identify some of the untruths we may have been taught. We come to realize that powerlessness does not mean weak. Controlling others does not make us safe. Looking to others for our direction does not support us in living our own lives. Judging others is not our business, and believing we are all powerful is painful. We experience how old tapes playing in our heads can control us. We discover that thinking in terms of black and white or right and wrong is rigid and limiting. And I'll add to that, and it's shame-based. So, so that gives us sort of a launching point for our first step. And then what I want you guys to do some writing around is, what are my intimacy wounds? And so the readings that we talked about are about the primary wounds, or the core wounds of the intimacy stuff, which is the abandonment and the enmeshment. So the abandonment looks like, I need you to not be you, or I'm going to leave. At least abandon you emotionally. Maybe I'll abandon you physically, but I'm going to abandon you. I don't accept you for who you are. You need to be a different way than you are. And the enmeshment is not that different, because the enmeshment is, like when we had parents that used us to get their needs met and demanded that we meet those needs, whatever that looked like, if that was their emotional needs or their physical needs, or being a doormat for them, or tiptoeing around their other addictions. And so, those two intimacy wounds, and I have both abandonment and enmeshment, and all of it is about intimacy, because I wasn't taught that I was safe to be intimate with myself or anyone, because intimacy is the truth about us, not the masks that we wear. So what I want us to do is look at, what are my addictions? So love addiction, relationship addiction, sex addiction, co-sex addiction. Those are the addictions. And then the avoidance side of it, which are also addictions: love avoidance, relationship anorexia, sex avoidance, and sexual anorexia. And I just want to define this, because people have asked me about this before. What is co-sex addiction? And I'm a co-sex addict, which is why it was important for me to add that to this list. So co-sex addiction for me is that I'm not particularly a sex addict. Like, I don't seek sex for the, for the high of it. I seek it for the connection of it. And I seek it for, I'm addicted to sex addicts, is another way to say that. And I mean, that's arrested now, but my co-sex addiction is being addicted to people who are addicted to me sexually, because that makes me feel powerful or wanted, because that is in my childhood story. My father was a sex addict and molested me. So that is deeply imprinted in my codependence, that, I'll be safe if you want to sexualize me, and I'll let you sexualize me so that you won't leave me. So that's the co-sex addiction for me. And I felt like I needed to define that a little bit, just because people have asked before, and it really didn't cover that very well in the pamphlet. So rager, workaholic. So those are some of my other ways, but specifically we're here doing work around codependency, love addiction, and the sexual intimacy and the anorexia and avoidance. So, and then I just also wanted to say to be aware of your boundaries and check in with your higher power about what's appropriate to share. This is very personal stuff, and some things may be best to save for our sponsor. So, trust your gut on that. And let's go ahead. I'm Heidi, I'm codependent. I hope you guys had a good chance to connect with each other. If you were struggling with some technical stuff, try to throw it in the chat to the committee members, and then we can kind of get better at this as we keep going through the steps and doing the breakout rooms. I think that the way that Zoom is set up, it will put you back in the same room that you were in last time. But if you need to be moved, just stay in the big room, or when you come back to the big room, you can ask to be moved to another room, or, whatever. So anyway, I just encourage everybody to take care of yourself and ask for what you need. So with that, we're going to move on to step 2. So step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Having admitted our powerlessness over step one, step two asks us to trust. We acknowledge our need to believe in and rely on something greater than ourselves. For many of us, this is the first time we are able to recognize that we are not the center of the universe. There is a plan and a power greater than anything we could possibly imagine on our own. We may now recognize the painful consequences of allowing others to be this power for us. We can experience humility and relieve ourselves of grandiosity and our obsession to control. We are not the power greater than ourselves, nor can others be this power for us. We begin to see how these patterns of thinking and behaving created unmanageability in our lives. Believing in a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity if we are willing. As children, our parents and or others were that power greater than ourselves. If these experiences left us unable to trust, we may now find it difficult to rely on anything or anyone, even ourselves. We may have learned that this power greater than ourselves was punishing, mean, unforgiving, or unavailable. We may also believe that we are unworthy of love and guidance. As we seek help, letting go of control can often be a terrifying prospect. So we're here to do it anyway and encourage and support each other in that process. What I chose for the step two work is really important to me because this is my workshop and it's based on my experience, strength, and hope. So this was a really powerful way for me to understand how my love addiction was operating. That I put masks on people, which is really a fantasy story that I tell myself about them to fix how I feel, to make me feel one up, or to make me feel control, or to make me feel safe, or to make me feel loved. So the masks that I put over people are really denying the reality of that person and then projecting onto them what I want to see so I feel better, whatever the better might be. Better sometimes might be villainizing them so that I feel validated in my victimization. It might be, adoring qualities of how great things are going between us. It may be qualities of they're never going to leave me because of this story and that story. So there might be the safety that I'm looking for, the fear of abandonment. It fixes the fear of abandonment. Or they look up to me. And so somehow I feel like elated or adored or appreciated or whatever that looks like. So those masks were such a part of me understanding the insanity and how I was doing that with people was keeping me away from my higher power because I'm putting godlike powers onto human beings. And then I'm taking their humanness and stripping it away because I want a big one up and I want to make them the bad guy, so this was just this game I'm playing in my head, the codependency, in order to fix how I feel and deny my emotional reality and not be vulnerable. And when I am depriving myself of the truth about things, I don't emotionally mature. I don't set boundaries. I don't walk away from toxic relationships. I don't encourage and nurture healthy communication in relationships that need some work. Instead I just put the mask on and now I'm okay for a minute. I put the mask on and now I'm okay for a minute. So this was powerful for me and I just wanted to share it with you guys. In order to do this, I kind of need to show you this page and some other pages. So I'm going to let you in a little behind the scenes here to my PowerPoint. Here we go. Get this out of the way. All right. So love addiction partner mask examples. I'm over here on the step two slide. So insanity of the relationship addiction and avoidance fantasies, masks we put on partners and others to medicate fear of abandonment or enmeshment. So I can get some kind of sense of security that the relationship is there, but I can keep you close enough to make me feel safe, but I can keep distance when I feel too threatened. How do I make others or avoidance of others my drug or higher power? So that's the question. That's the key question that I have to ask myself is, how am I using you or a story about you to make me feel safe? Because if I don't learn how to make myself feel safe, in my own care, with my own boundaries, in my own well-being, with my own self-esteem and my own higher power, then I'm always going to lose my power to you. And others are always going to be human, taking care of themselves, doing life the way that they do it with all their crazy toxicity, just the same as I have, right? And so I can never put my well-being in other people's hands. And that's what I've chronically done. So, and I've expected them to do a good job of it, which is the insanity, right? So, how do I make others or avoidance of others my drug or higher power instead of take care of my own feelings and heal my own wounds?
Right.
And so we want to identify the positive fantasy. So that is here in this love addiction partner masks. This is my example of this. I used an example from the relationship bottom that got me to CoDA, which was 15 years ago. And this was the man that I divorced and that I talked about in the last workshop that we did back in July, a lot about my ex-husband. So the fantasy stories that I would make up about him that would make me feel like, oh, I'm in this secure relationship, is like, you love me, I'm safe, you make me so happy, I'm special, you'll never leave me, I matter, you're my soulmate, you'll never lie to me, you would always love me, and that comes with the fantasy high of, oh, he sees everything about me and just appreciates me and adores me. And of course he's in full-blown self-abandonment, while all that's going on, and he's just throwing out all these compliments and adoring me and appreciating me and telling me all these things. And he's also a sex addict trying to seek sex. So, he's putting me on a pedestal and you're the most beautiful girl and blah, 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 blah. So he's got his part and I have my part. Like I'm just soaking it in, and I'm getting high and he's getting high. And I think that we're both getting high because we're meant to be. And then so I got that big relationship story going on. So the feelings that come with that when I'm getting in that romantic high and that security high is that, I've got all these feelings of love and joy and elation. I feel appreciated and valued, wanted, connection, safety, togetherness, unity, adored, relief from pain. That's a big one. And that's, I think, the key component for why it's an addiction is because it pulls me out of the trauma bond with my child, my inner child's trauma with my father and my mother and those toxic relationships. And now I have this imaginary safe place, that I've created this relationship to be this amazing euphoric bubble of I'll always be loved. And I get high off of it. So that is the positive fantasy. And then identify the negative fantasy, the villain, guy or girl, write the stories, the fantasy, and write the feelings associated with the stories. Okay, so when the love fantasy stops working and I start to see his avoidant behaviors, or intimacy starts to get triggered, fear of intimacy may start to get triggered when I see the truth of him beyond when I put those rose-colored glasses on. Oh, he's spending an awful lot of time gaming. He cancels a date, he's not as excited about seeing me as he once was. He'd rather go do stuff with his friends, or like we're spending, a day together and he wants to get home to get ready for work the next day, where in the beginning of the relationship, I couldn't make him leave at 2 a.m, you know, you know what I mean? And then now it's like, oh, he is so safe that I am so safe in his care. He'll never lose interest in me. He'll never put another woman before me or another girl before me. And so I start, getting that way. And so then I start going into negative fantasies. And this is an extreme negative fantasy that I talk about in this slide here. But eventually, over time, it gets this deep for me. So the fantasy story in the negative side is where he becomes the villain. So you don't love me. I can't trust you. You're selfish. I don't even know you. You're a liar. I don't need you. It's all your fault. You're a player. You don't care. You're a bad person. I can't believe I'm with you. So I have a lot of one up going on there. I got a lot of victim going on there, and I've, again, like in my putting this mask on him, I'm looking for the one up. I'm looking for the blame, the shamelessness of blaming someone else for how I feel. And I also can go into a negative fantasy with the one down, and so I'm more of a one up addict, or one up codependent, I guess. I tend to go into the rage rather than the, oh, I'm not good enough. I go into the, you're not good enough. That's just an easier fix for me, and just how my codependency developed because of my childhood. Not proud of that, but I tend to go into the one up, and then I also go into the one down, but I like the one up feeling better. And so, but we can use that negative fantasy in either one, the one up or the one down. And so that's important to try to figure out what you relate to. Feelings that are associated with the negative fantasy: I could be in pain and anguish, devalued, um, ashamed, abandoned, alone, fearful, suspicious, paranoid, up in my head, recounting all the little stories that you've told me, that now I can be like, that's a lie, and that was a lie, and that was a lie. And I'm just building a case and building a case, right? And getting more and more one up and more victimization. But I'm also scaring my little girl inside, because I'm taking this relationship and I'm completely making a monster out of this person that I've let so deep into my heart, into my life, probably into my bed, so I'm scaring that little girl like crazy, once I come out of the rage. So going back to the feelings list: discarded, powerless, desperate, rage, and one up. So, the feelings can be all over the place with that stuff. Um, and just as easily I can feel hopeless. I can feel, completely diminished or invisible. Again, that kind of depends on the one up or the one down that's going on with that. So we want to look at these masks that we put on people, where we're projecting our history, from our trauma. We're projecting our history onto these people and not seeing them for a human being. Even if they are doing significant damage to me, they're still a human, and they're still a person. And when I strip them of all that humanity and put this mask on them for my own fantasy story to fix my feelings, it doesn't help me make better choices in the relationship. It doesn't help me set boundaries right. It doesn't help me take care of myself in any way. I'm basically just doing this to fix how I feel in this moment and keep the trauma stuff down, because whatever's happening in the trigger that's going on is activating that trauma to come up, and I'm starting to feel some PTSD, and I want to shut that shit down. So I can go into a rage or a victim story or a euphoric fantasy of us, and all that has to be intense in order to shut that trauma down, right? Of our original abandonment, our original neglect, our original fear of being seen, our original enmeshment trauma, whatever that is that's in there. So I created in here these little like you can see down here, the positive fantasy worksheets. And so go ahead and write that up. And I want you to, on the left, write down the fantasy stories that you make up on the positive side of things. And then the feelings that go with those, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Just try to get in touch with, like, what am I doing when I see this person in this particular way? And to start to identify that we're stripping them of the whole person that they are, and just like zooming in on all those traits that are going to build this big case either for or against them, in order to medicate other feelings I am refusing to feel. And it's all going to fix my PTSD and put me back on course. And it doesn't work. It's like a beer. What is a beer? A beer is the beginning of the next beer. It's just the beginning of the next beer, and the next beer, and the next beer, and the next beer. So if I am in this cycle of projecting things onto people so that I can medicate the relationship and tolerate intimacy, it's just going to mean I have to project more and project more and project more, because I'm not developing my own self-care abilities, you know? And it can be very confusing because I think especially when I'm in the negative fantasy, I think I'm pulling myself out of my denial about this person. And now I can see who they really are. And I've got this big case that I'm building about them. I don't have to take it anymore. And I feel like that's empowerment. But again, I'm still in denial. I've compartmentalized the good parts of them, the good times we had, the ways they do show up caring. And I've stripped that away just so that I can get this big one up high over here. And maybe you guys don't do all this. I hope you don't. This is just me. And that all of you just drop off the call and say, well, Heidi, you're on your own. But that's probably not true. So anyway, so go ahead and work on that. Welcome back, everybody. Okay, so we're going to move on and work on step 3. Made a decision to turn our will and lives over to the care of God as we understood God. And I'm going to just read a little bit out of the workbook. Step 3 offers us the opportunity to make a decision and to have faith in a power greater than ourselves. Many of us begin working this step with small things, such as making a decision not to fix someone, letting our feelings just be there, or not trying to control just for a few minutes at a time. As we experience the benefits of working step 3, we find ourselves more willing to trust in the care of a loving higher power and to experience faith. The primary purpose of this step is to begin living our lives in a new way. Finally, we have a tool that works and provides us the freedom and acceptance we were incapable of finding through self-will alone. This step suggests a willingness to live in this decision. We surrender ourselves to a higher power of our own understanding. When we do this, we can begin new, more satisfying relationships with ourselves and others. As we develop the courage and willingness required in step 3, many of us come to acknowledge and believe that we are part of God's plan, and we become increasingly capable of knowing ourselves as how God, increasingly capable of knowing ourselves as how God and not others intended us to be. As codependents, our gods often have been other powerful forces. We may have been ruled by fear, anger, resentment, guilt, and a powerful urge to take care of or be taken care of by those we have invested with authority to govern our lives. In step 3, we can begin to let go of these powerful forces which have controlled us and align ourselves, our thinking, and our actions with our higher power. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to read stages of recovery. I'm just going to read the headers and one little section. So 20, okay, stages of recovery. With recovery experience, we develop, I'm reading in the Peeling the Onion pamphlet now. With stages of recovery. With recovery experience, we discover deeper layers than we first imagined. We proceed with courage because we realize we are no longer alone. We have developed a consistent relationship with a higher power, a recovery program, a home group, a sponsor, and the support of recovery friends. We have tools, including the 12 steps and 12 traditions, which guide us to new ways of thinking and behaving. We are no longer overwhelmed by life. Recovery from love, sex, and relationship addiction and avoidance may include the following stages. We reach out for help when we need it. We speak up for ourselves. We see others and ourselves realistically. We stop using others or expecting them to meet all our needs. We set boundaries that ensure our well-being. We use the tools of recovery. We work the steps, and we rely on a higher power. And these are some excerpts from Codependence in Recovery about we rely on a higher power. I am so sick to think that once again I trusted someone who turned out to be untrustworthy, and once again my world feels unsafe. There is nobody to rely on but myself and God. Without God in my life, I'd be dead. Gratefully, being in recovery has taught me that I am never alone. The emptiness is fading. Here's another one. In recovery, I realized the love connection to my higher power. The feeling that all is right with the world has always been inside of me. I feel lovable and loved. Another one. What I didn't understand before recovery is that the unconditional love I seek from another human being is only available from my higher power. And another one, I need my higher power to guide me through all the work I have yet to do regarding my love, sex, and relationship issues. And then the difficult task of peeling off these painful layers of the onion would be impossible without my higher power. And the last one is working the CoDA program. I realize I have options. If something does not work, I ask my higher power for guidance and try another option. I do the footwork, leaving the results to God. So that gets us ready to make that decision to turn our will and lives over. The encouragement and the support of other people that have done it before us and had success there. So now we're going to make the decision or not, but it's up to you. If you're ready, make a decision to surrender our codependency and addictions and write a short letter to the God of your understanding. Letting steps provide the foundation for our, made step 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. The first 3 steps provide the foundation for our 4-step work. In step 1, we admitted that we are powerless over others. In step 2, we came to believe in a power greater than ourselves. Then in step 3, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood God. With this spiritual foundation, we now focus on step 4. We get ready by talking with our sponsor, meditating, and praying. As we start this process, we may want to consider the following questions. How can I use steps 1, 2, and 3 to do step 4? What does fearless mean to me? What does moral inventory mean to me? What tools might I use to help me take this inventory? And which of the formats listed on page 49 will I use to do my 4-step? Let's see. 7 and 8 is 1. A personal inventory helps us examine how our codependency has kept us from ourselves. This step is about faith in ourselves, to be honest, as well as faith in our higher power. We acknowledge the loss and pain we have experienced. We recognize those behaviors which get in the way. We begin to have relationships with ourselves and others that are based on integrity. Understanding that recovery doesn't have a timetable, we accept that we heal in God's time. Believing in a power greater than ourselves helps us to let go and turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand God. In our searching and fearless moral inventory, it's important that we also list our positive character traits, our strengths, values, assets, and talents. Many of us find it difficult to include our good qualities. In the past, it may have been implied that by focusing on our good qualities, we were being conceited, boastful, or self-involved. In recovery, in order to bring balance to our 4-step work, we acknowledge the need to embrace our strengths and our positive character traits. Okay, so 5. So I'm going, did you want to grab a picture of that?
No, I went through it all.
You're good. Okay. All right. Step 5. Okay. So, in the homework, I put choose one and write about how you act out in that pattern or how it applies. That would be more work that you can do if you have more time. But for today's workshop, we just don't have time to do all of it, you know. But we're going to do step 5. I'm just going to read about step 5 so that we can hold it in our hearts, and then we'll do breakout groups so that you guys can talk about what you related to on the step 4 material. So step 5, step 5 directs us. Step 5 is admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 5 directs us to take specific action and make 3 very important connections. The first of these connections is with our higher power. The order of the 5th step reinforces the basic truth of recovery. Our relationship with God comes first. We can take time in prayer and meditation to open our hearts and communicate with the God of our understanding about the exact nature of our wrongs. Many of us choose to make a list of our codependent behaviors and beliefs from our 4th step before talking with our higher power. This level of Honesty can be an intimate and powerful experience. We can be comforted that there are no secrets between ourselves and our higher power. We begin to be relieved of the burden of our secrets and learn to trust our higher power even more. This step helps us understand that our higher power loves and cares for us just as we are. And then I'm going to skip down to paragraph 3. The final instruction of step 5 requires us to connect with another human being and admit the exact natures of our wrongs. Most of us accomplish this task by reading our inventory to a person who feels safe to us. We seek out someone who will actively listen without shaming or judging, who will listen with compassion and caring. This person could be our sponsor or someone else whose recovery program we respect. A close friend, a spiritual advisor, a therapist, or a step study group of recovering codependents. Trusting the steps and acknowledging that this process has worked for others can help us push through our fear. As we do our 5th step work, we recognize our codependent behavior patterns, where they came from, and the harm they have caused. Doing the 5th step begins to open the door to truth, joy, and freedom. Okay, so we're gonna do, we'll take 10 minutes and do a 5th step with our 4th step, and why don't we make it like 8 minutes? I think that 2 minutes for each person. Our defects with humility allows our healing to begin, and honesty with our higher power and ourselves plays a major role in becoming entirely ready. Entirely means completedness, which means letting go of trying to control our defects. We are asked to be entirely ready as we work our program, writing, sharing, meditating, and asking for knowledge of our higher power's will in our lives. Continuing to be ready, to be entirely ready, becomes a way of life, not a one-time event. Defects can be seen as behaviors and beliefs that stand in our way. Defects of character are not who we are spiritually. They are codependent behaviors that we have used to survive life. In becoming entirely ready, we learn to own our defects. When we ask our higher power to guide us and we trust in this process, we have a spiritual experience. The keys for step 6 are strong faith, trust, and a connection to our higher power. So in the exercise that we just did, we're going to go back and identify the character defects of the behaviors and the patterns that we identified that we related to. So I'm going to go back to that. Where's that? Here we go. I'll leave that on the screen. And so whichever ones you identified with, go ahead and identify the defects of character as best you can with the ones that you identify with. Like I identify with this ugly one down here. It looks like it's in neon to me because I've been doing this. I focus on your negative traits and tell you how you should change. My partner is in this group right now, so sorry, Vince. But yeah, that one's ugly and me, and I do that, and that's part of my codependency and part of my avoidance and love addiction. So when I'm doing that, I'm in denial, I'm blaming, I'm shaming, I'm judging, I'm withdrawing love. I mean, you know, there's a bunch of different things that are wrapped up in that. And so it's important that I identify all the ways that I'm acting out in that one. So I'll let you guys have like 5 minutes or so to humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings. Step 7, asking that our shortcomings be removed may be scary. In our childhoods, when we were vulnerable and admitted our imperfections, terrible things happened. Because of this history, it may never occur to us to be vulnerable and ask something of our higher power. We may still be making choices today based on our old survival behavior. In the past, we may have been taught, if it is to be, it is up to me, and or never let anyone see you are struggling. We may have been taught we couldn't rely on anyone or anything except our own abilities and ourselves. As recovering codependent adults, we ask God to remove our shortcomings, including our fears, self-criticism, and perfectionism. Then we let go. In working step 7, we choose living, loving ourselves, and working our recovery program. So now our assignment is to, in the codependent relationships versus authentic relationships from Peeling the Onion, we're going to share about the healthy recovery behaviors that we will practice instead from the authentic relationships column, or edit and write your own. And so we'll take a couple of minutes for you guys to think about that things. Um, I'm gonna skip reading in the workbook on each step um, so that we can condense the time and get them all in. So step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. You know, I always like to share this because it was really powerful for me as a codependent, and I came to CoDA from another fellowship, um, and I saw how easy it was for me to make amends to others, and you know, take my inventory, and you know how you know, it was pretty easy for me to make a list of all my wrongs and character assassinate myself, and hold myself accountable. You know, what was a lot harder was to make amends to me, you know. And so the first 3 times I worked the steps in CoDA, and this is just my story, but you know, the first 3 times I worked the steps, which was the first year I was in CoDA, um, I only did amends to me. I did living amends to other people, but I took that away from me, that like, oh, I'll go in and make everything perfect by admitting all these things I did wrong and fix it right away, fix it, you know. And that was just kind of this old, you know, paradigm that I had going on in my head, you know. It was way harder to make amends to me and put me in the hot seat, so to speak, you know, to like, what would living amends look like to me if I've been in self-abandonment all this time and I'm expecting others to do all these things for me. What does doing them for me look like? I just went blank. Like, I don't even know what that looks like. Blank, you know. I didn't know how to meet my own needs. I knew how to meet your needs so you would meet my needs. Never worked, but I mean, it worked for a minute. It worked enough to get me addicted, but it didn't work long time. It's just not sustainable. So anyway, so we're going to take a look at how the defects of character harmed us and others, and our willingness to make amends to ourselves and others. So the defects of character that we talked about that we just worked through, the step 4 and 6 and 7, how those defects of character caused harm. And so go through those and make a list of who you harmed with those, especially you, and how it harmed you. How did that harm you? How did it fail to take care of you? How did it fail to create safety? How did it distract you from authentic care for yourself? The nature of that harm. And we're not witch hunting. We're not trying to character assassinate ourselves or find every little scrap of things wrong. We're just trying to learn that we deserve care, and it has to start with us. So go ahead and work on step 9 now. So step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. So now is where we can incorporate some boundaries, because boundaries are really how we functionally work with our defects of character. We set a boundary that says, like, I no longer can act out in that behavior. I have to find new, healthier ways to get that need met, whatever that was, you know, whether that need was about shutting a feeling down or feeling safe or controlling someone else or supporting my denial, whatever that was, whatever the defective character is, you know. We have to find new ways to feel safe, new ways to be seen, new ways to be heard, new ways to allow intimacy to become healthy. So what boundaries can you set that will assist you in arresting those defects of character? Everybody's back. Heidi Codependent, and just want to say we don't have time to finish the steps, but good job. We got through 9, and I'm going to just show the last couple screens, and then we have to close up. So the next screen has some information about step 10, 11, and 12. And so I would just make the suggestion that, you know, you can take 10, 11, and 12 to your sponsor, or find somebody from the group to co-sponsor with, and you guys can kind of finish it. It feels good to finish something. Um, but the other thing that I wanted to share is that the last 3 pages of the workshop PDF has resting, love, addiction, and avoidance, and getting through withdrawal, because withdrawal was such a painful process for me, and so excruciatingly lonely and helpless and hopeless, and felt, I mean, just the I just I was the worst time in my life, was trying to get through the love addiction withdrawal. So this may make all the difference. Is like having some things, a list of things that you can go to and say, okay, let me focus on this now, let me focus on this, let me focus on this. So it's part of the PDF, so you can grab it, and refer to these and kind of use these and find what gives you relief, to get through it. And then on the bottom of this page, it says, once we turn it over, the feelings underneath that are driving the addictions are revealed. This means it's time for deeper recovery and healing, more layers of the onion. Pray, trust, heal, and love yourself.